everyone, to our piratical themed One Book, One Night. We are so excited to share the first chapter of Treasure Island with you, La Isla del Tesoro. If you notice we look a little different, that's because we're in our pirate gear. Let's go ahead and jump into One Book, One Night, Treasure Island. My name is Amanda, and I'm here with
Lisa. It's good to see everybody.
It is. Well, good to see you out of one eye, as that is. We are with the Tampa Hillsborough County Public Library. This is One Book, One Night, Treasure Island by Robert Louis Stevenson. Okay, let's go ahead and get into the book shout-out.
So, for our book shout-outs, pardon me while I lift my patch here, I'm cheating. We have two books, one a bit more modern and one another classic. The Girl from Everywhere by Heidi Heilig is it's a fun newer book. I believe it came out in 2017 or thereabouts. It's the story of Nix. She's a 16-year-old girl who lives aboard a time-traveling ship with her dad. And there's this big adventure that they go on that's a very existential journey for her. As her dad travels back in time, some of the things happening threaten her existence, and it's a little bit of a nail biter, but it's a book that I very much enjoyed, and I think Amanda read this one too.
Yes, I like this one. If you like non-traditional time travel books, this is a great book for you. It doesn't have a very sci-fi feel, which I'm not super into, but it does have a lot of it has a very fantasy feel, so it has a lot of lore, and it creates this. I love when time travel books, they create their own universe with their own rules and sets for time travel. I thought it was very clever how they did it. So it is a piratical fantasy YA story. I really liked it, and I've been keeping an eye on this author ever since.
The other book that we have for you today is another classic. So similar to Treasure Island, I chose The Captain's Courageous by Rudyard Kipling. This is going to be the story of a young, kind of arrogant, kind of snobby son of a rich person who falls into misadventure on the high seas, and it's the story of how he survives and ends up thriving by the end of it. So if you want another great classic read, it's available in our catalog and in all the formats that you would expect, but definitely check this one out for another good classic read.
Many great reads on the high seas. Okay, let's start with a poll question. So I am going to do our first poll, and that is to ask you, today is Friday, April 23rd for the live broadcast. Do you know what holiday is being celebrated today? So feel free to put in your answer if you know what the holiday is. Is it World Book and Copyright Day? Is it St. George's Day? Festival St. Geordie? All of the above? None of the above, something else. And if you think it's something else, go ahead and put that into the section. Okay, so.
Spoiler alert, it is not International Talk Like a Pirate Day.
But there is. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and show you. It is actually all of the above. April 23rd is a really cool day and something I always like to celebrate because it is both UNESCO World Book and Copyright Day. Sometimes it's known as the International Day of the Book. And I have the portraits of two famous writers down here. If you can't tell, on the left, we have William Shakespeare, and on the right, we have Miguel de Cervantes. And though the day is so chosen because it coordinates with the birth and death dates of these two authors who are made great contributions to both the English and Spanish language literary canon. A lot of common phrasing and really cool themes and tropes came out of their writing. So that's how UNESCO World Book Day was chosen for April 23rd. But it's also really cool because it is St. George's Day. So you may know St. George is the patron saint of many places, including England, Catalonia. We're going to talk about that. But St. George's Day, he's most famous for the story of slaying of the dragon. So a lot of times you see him in the artwork like we have here. But a really cool thing I wanted to share with you, which I think is a beautiful tradition in Catalonia, he's the patron saint of Catalonia. So in Catalan, the language is Dia de Sant Jordi instead of St. George. And the cool tradition they have there is they exchange roses and books. So on this day, you celebrate by giving your loved one either roses or books. And I thought, oh, that's a beautiful thing I want to share with people in case they want to do it for their loved ones. I think books are a beautiful gift because it goes to show you really put the thought in and getting to know somebody's taste and what they're into. So I wanted to share that holiday with you and let you know that's what we're celebrating today. And speaking of it, because it is World Book Day, International World Book and Copyright Day through UNESCO, I do want to share this very cool resource with you. It is Project Gutenberg. This is a nonprofit project that has digitized over 60,000 free ebooks that are older works that have now their US copyright has expired. So these books are in the public domain, they're free. Books like Treasure Island and books like the works of Shakespeare and different books, but there's really great amount of great literature in here. So if you are ever looking for a great ebook, you can find it on Project Gutenberg, and that does link through our library catalog. Okay, so speaking of great literature that is copyright free, let's go ahead, Lisa, and turn off our cameras and let us jump into the story of Treasure Island.
There we go. So just keep in mind as we go through this story, we're going to talk about it a little bit at the end. We kind of want to know what your first impression of the pirate in the story is. Was this pirate similar to what you think a pirate might look and act like? Let us know what lines up with what you assume about pirates and what doesn't as much. So we'll talk about that at the end. Part 1, The Old Buccaneer. The old sea dog at the Admiral Benbow. Squire Trelawney, Dr. Livesey, and the rest of these gentlemen having asked me to write down the whole particulars about Treasure Island, from the beginning to the end, keeping nothing back but the bearings of the island, and that only because there is still treasure not yet lifted. I take up my pen in the year of grace 17 and go back to the time when my father kept the Admiral Benbow Inn, and the brown old seaman with the saber cut first took up his lodgings under our roof.
Parte primera, El Viejo Pirata. Capítulo 1, El Viejo Marino. El Squire Trelawney, el Dr. Livesey y algunos otros caballeros me han indicado que ponga por escrito todo lo referente a la isla del tesoro, sin omitir detalle, aunque sin mencionar la posición de la isla, ya que todavía en ella quedan riquezas enterradas. Y por ello, tomo mi pluma en este año de gracia de 17, y mi memoria se remonta al tiempo en que mi padre era dueño de la hostería Almirante Benbow, y el viejo curtido navegante, con su rostro cruzado por un sablazo, buscó cobijo para nuestro techo.
I remember him as if it were yesterday, as he came plodding to the inn door, his sea chest following behind him in a hand barrow, a tall, strong, heavy, nut-brown man, his tarry pigtail falling over the shoulder of his soiled blue coat, his hands ragged and scarred, with black broken nails and the saber cut across one cheek, a dirty, livid white. I remember him looking round the corner and whistling to himself as he did so, and then breaking out in that old sea song that he sang so often afterwards. 15 men on the dead men's chest, yo-ho-ho, and a bottle of rum, in the high, tottering voice that seemed to have been tuned and broken at the capstan bars. Then he rapped on the door with a bit of stick like a handspike that he carried, and when my father appeared, called roughly for a glass of rum. This, when it was brought to him, he drank slowly, like a connoisseur, lingering on the taste, and still looking about him at the cliffs and up at our signboard.
Lo recuerdo como si fuera ayer, venciéndose como un navío llegó a la puerta de la posada, y tras él arrastraba, en una especie de angarillas, su cofre marino. Era un viejo recio, macizo, alto, con el color de bronce viejo que los océanos dejan en la piel. Su coleta embreada le caía sobre los hombros de una casaca que había sido azul. Tenía las manos agrietadas y llenas de cicatrices, con uñas negras y rotas, y el sablazo que cruzaba su mejilla era como un costurón de siniestra blancura. Lo veo otra vez, mirando la ensenada y masticando un silbido. De pronto empezó a cantar aquella antigua canción marinera que después tan a menudo le escucharía. 15 hombres en el cofre de muerto, ja, 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 y una botella de ron. Con aquella voz cascada, que parecía afinada en las barras de cabrestante. Golpeó en la puerta con un palo, una especie de estilo de bichero en que se apoyaba, y cuando acudió mi padre, en un tono sin contemplaciones, le pidió que le sirviera un vaso de ron. Cuando se lo trajeron, lo bebió despacio, como hacen los catadores, chascando la lengua y sin dejar de mirar a su alrededor, hacia los acantilados y fijándose en la muestra que se balanceaba sobre la puerta de nuestra posada.
This is a handy cove, he says at length, and a pleasant situated grog shop. Much company made? My father told him no, very little company, the more was the pity. Well then, says he, this is the berth for me. Here, ye matey, he cried to the man who trundled the barrow. Bring up alongside and help up my chest. I'll stay here a bit, he continued. I'm a plain man. Rum and bacon and eggs is what I want, and that head up there for to watch the ships off. What you might call me? You might call me captain. Oh, I see what you're at. There. And he threw down 3 or 4 gold pieces on the threshold. You can tell me when I've worked through that, says he, looking as fierce as a commander.
Es una buena rada, dijo entonces.
Oh, I think we might have lost your audio,
No,
Amanda.
mi padre le respondió que no, pocos clientes por desgracia. Bueno, pues entonces aquí me acomodaré. Tú, compadre, le gritó al hombre que arrastraba las angarillas. Atraca aquí, echo un mano para subir al cofre. Voy a hospedarme unos días, continuó. Soy hombre llano, ron, tocino y huevos es todo lo que quiero. Y aquella roca de allí arriba, para ver pasar los barcos. ¿Cuál es mi nombre? Llámame capitán. Y ya, se me olvidaba. Perdona, camarada. Y arrojó 3 o 4 monedas de oro sobre el umbral. Ya me avisaréis cuando me haya comido ese dinero, dijo con la misma voz con que podía mandar un barco. Okay, we are ready for our next poll question to get your opinion. And our poll question is, what are your first impressions of the pirate? So let's go ahead and launch the poll. Okay, so the poll is open. Go ahead and vote for us. Do you think he'll be a friend and a mentor to this young narrator? He seems harmless enough. I'm already suspicious of him. He's probably the villain, or other. If you think something else about him, maybe he's the villain, maybe he's not, go ahead and tell us in the questions section. So we've got almost everybody. Let's go ahead. Oh, I'm curious to see here. Let's go ahead and see the results. Okay, I'm going to share those so everybody can see.
Ooh, we
so
got a divided audience.
Like we are divided, and they're 2 very different things. One person is suspicious, or half of the people we have are suspicious, and half of the people we think he'll be a friend or a mentor. Well, it could definitely go 2 ways here. He could be one of those curmudgeons with a heart of gold, or he could have sinister designs here at the Almirante Benbow, or the Admiral Benbow. What do you think, Miss Lisa? What do you think of the pirate so far?
Oh, I am definitely suspicious. I would be suspicious of any stranger coming in flaunting cash where cash is not used to being seen.
That's very true. I'm not going to go so far as to say he's the villain, but I am going to say I'm suspicious only because he's a very mysterious character. And his physical appearance, I think they give a very kind of a very intimidating, daunting appearance. Okay, let's go ahead and find out if we can see, or if we can find out more about the captain.
He was a very silent man by custom. All day he hung round the cove or upon the hills with a brass telescope. All evening he sat in a corner of the parlor next to the fire and drank rum and water very strong. Mostly he would not speak when spoken to, only to look up sudden and fierce and blow through his nose like a foghorn, and we and the people who came about our house soon learned to let him be. Every day when he came back from his stroll, he would ask if any seafaring men had gone by along the road. At first we thought it was the want of company of his own kind that made him ask this question, but at last we began to see that he was desirous to avoid them. When a seaman did put up at the Admiral Benbow, as now and then some did, making by the coast road for Bristol, he would look in at them through the curtain door before he entered the parlor, and he was always sure to be silent as a mouse when any such was present. For me, at least, there was no secret about the matter, for I was, in a way, a sharer in his alarms.
Ah, interesting. Era un hombre reservado, taciturno. Durante el día vagabundeaba en turno en la ensenada o por los acantilados, con un catalejo de latón bajo el brazo, y la velada solía pasarla sentado en un rincón junto al fuego, bebiendo el ron más fuerte con un poco de agua. Casi nunca respondía cuando se le hablaba, solo erguía la cabeza y resoplaba la nariz, como un cuerno de niebla. Por lo que tanto nosotros como los clientes habituales pronto aprendimos a no meternos con él. Cada día, al volver de su caminata, preguntaba si había pasado por el camino algún hombre con aspecto de marino. Al principio pensamos que echaba de menos la compañía de gente de su condición, pero después caímos en la cuenta de que precisamente lo que trataba era de esquivarla. Cuando algún marino entraba en la Almirante Benbow, como de tiempo en tiempo solían hacer los que se encaminaban a Bristol por la carretera de la costa, él espiaba, antes de pasar la cocina, por entre las cortinas de la puerta, y siempre permaneció callado como un muerto en presencia de los forasteros. Yo era el único para quien su comportamiento era explicable, pues, en cierto modo, participaba de sus alarmas.
So I want to share one of my favorite library resources, Hoopla Digital. If you've been to our programs before, you know I like to talk about how you can get books and audiobooks on here with absolutely no waiting. They're available right away. But Hoopla also has a ton of music that you can get through their catalog. So I've thrown out a selection here of piratey, nautical type music that you might be interested in. It's everything from modern rock music, kids music, classical music soundtracks, or some sea shanty folk songs. So if you want to practice some sea shanties for your strong TikTok game, you might want to check some out on Hoopla.
Sea shanties are definitely having a moment right now. They're kind of that retro cool thing that people are into, not just the Dropkick Murphys anymore. And as you know, we are big fans of Hoopla here at One Book One Night. We love it. There's so many great resources. And I'm really glad, Lisa, that you highlighted this, because something cool about Hoopla is a lot of times they work with most of the big music labels. So a lot of times, the moment you're go ahead and check. But a lot of times these big artists, when they are dropping their music, for public consumption, for purchase, they're also available right away on Hoopla, which is really cool. A lot of times there is a little bit of a wait between new releases for books and movies and TV, but not for music. So definitely be sure to check that out. And something good to know is you can check out the music for 7 days. So you get it for a whole week. There's all sorts of regular, music artists, soundtracks, musical theater, stuff for kids, stuff for adults, really good stuff. Okay, let's get back into, we know one sea shanty we'll be hearing again, Lisa, so our 15 botellas de ron. Okay, let's get back to it.
He had taken me aside one day and promised me silver fourpenny on the first of every month if I only would keep my weather eye open for a seafaring man with one leg, and let him know the moment he appeared. Often enough, when the first of the month came round and I applied to him for my wage, he would only blow through his nose at me and stare me down. But before the week was out, he was sure to think better of it and bring me my fourpenny piece and repeat his orders to look out for the seafaring man with one leg. How that personage haunted my dreams, I need scarcely tell you. On stormy nights when the wind shook the four corners of the house and the surf roared along the cove and up the cliffs, I would see him in 1,000 forms and with 1,000 diabolical expressions. Now the leg would be cut off at the knee, now at the hip. Now he was a monstrous kind of creature who had never had but the one leg, and that in the middle of his body, To see him leap and run and pursue me over the hedge and ditch was the worst of my nightmares. And altogether, I paid pretty dear for my monthly 4-penny piece in the shape of these abominable fancies.
Un día me había llevado aparte y me prometió 4 peniques de plata cada primero de mes si tenía el ojo avisor para informarle de la llegada de un marino con una sola pierna. Muchas veces, al llegar al día convenido y exigirle yo lo pactado, me soltaba un tremendo bufido, mirándome con tal cólera que llegaba a inspirarme temor. Pero antes de acabar la semana, parecía pensar lo mejor, y me daba mis 4 peniques y me repetía la orden de estar alerta antes de la llegada del marino con una sola pierna. No es necesario que diga cómo mis sueños se poblaron con las más terribles imágenes del mutilado. En noches de borrasca, cuando el viento sacudía hasta las raíces de la casa y la marejada rugía en la cala rompiendo contra los acantilados, se me aparecía con 1000 formas distintas y las más diabólicas expresiones. Unas veces con su pierna cercenada por la rodilla, otras por la cadera. En ocasiones era un ser monstruoso de una única pierna que le nacía del centro del tronco. Yo le veía, en el peor de mis pesadillas, correr y perseguirme soltando estacadas y zanjas. Bien echadas las cuentas. Qué caro pagué mis 4 peniques con tan espantosas visiones.
But though I was so terrified by the idea of the seafaring man with one leg, I was far less afraid of the captain himself than anybody else who knew him. There were nights when he took a deal more rum and water than his head could carry, and then he would sometimes sit and sing his wicked old wild sea songs, minding nobody. But sometimes he would call for glasses round and force all the trembling company to listen to his stories or bear a chorus to his singing. Often I have heard the house shaking with yo ho ho and a bottle of rum, all the neighbors joining in for dear life with the fear of death upon them, and each singing louder than the other to avoid remark. For in these fits he was the most overriding companion ever known. He would slap his hand on the table for silence all around. He would fly up in a passion of anger at a question, or sometimes because none was put, and so he judged the company was not following his story. Nor would he allow anyone to leave the inn till he had drunk himself sleepy and reeled off to bed.
Pero, aun aterrado por la imagen de aquel marino con una sola pierna, yo era, de cuantos trataban al capitán, quizá el que menos miedo le tuviera. En las noches en que bebía más ron de lo que su cabeza podía aguantar, cantaba sus viejas canciones marineras, impías y salvajes, ajeno a cuantos lo que rodeábamos. En ocasiones pedía una ronda para todos los presentes y obligaba a la atemorizada clientela a escuchar, llenos de pánico, sus historias y a corear sus cantos. ¿Cuántas noches sentía estremecerse la casa con su ja, ja, ja y una botella de ron que todos los asistentes se apresuraban a acompañar, a cual más fuerte por temor a despertar su ira? Porque en esos arrebatos era el contertulio de peor trato que jamás se ha visto. Daba puñetazos en la mesa para imponer silencio a todos y estallaba enfurecido tanto si alguien lo interrumpía como si no, pues sospechaba que el coro no seguía su relato con interés. Tampoco permitía que nadie abandonase la hostería hasta que él, empapado de ron, se levantaba soñoliento y dando tumbos se encaminaba hacia su lecho.
His stories were what frightened people worst of all. Dreadful stories they were, about hanging and walking the plank and storms at sea, and the dry tortugas and wild deeds in places on the Spanish Main. By his own account, he must have lived his life among some of the wickedest men that God had ever allowed upon the sea, and the language in which he told these stories shocked our plain country people almost as much as the crimes that he described. My father was always saying the inn would be ruined, for people would soon cease coming there to be tyrannized over and put down, and sent shivering to their beds. But I really believe his presence did us good. People were frightened at the time, but on looking back, they rather liked it. It was a fine excitement in a quiet country life, and there was even a party of the younger men who pretended to admire him, calling him a true sea dog and a real old salt and such like namings, saying there was the sort of man that made England terrible at sea.
Y aun con esto, lo que más asustaba a la gente eran las historias que contaba, terroríficos relatos donde desfilaban ahorcados, condenados que pasaban por la plancha, temporales de alta mar, leyendas de la isla de Tortuga y otros siniestros parajes de la América española. Según él mismo contaba, había pasado su vida entre la gente más despiadada que Dios lanzó a los mares, y el vocabulario con que se refería a ellos en sus relatos escandalizaba a nuestros sencillos vecinos, tanto como los crímenes que describía. Mi padre aseguraba que aquel hombre sería la ruina de nuestra posada, porque pronto la gente se cansaría de venir para sufrir humillaciones y luego terminar la noche sobrecogido de pavor. Pero yo tengo para mí que su presencia nos fue de provecho, porque los clientes, que al principio se sentían atemorizados, luego, en el fondo, encontraban deleite. Era una fuente de emociones que rompía la calmosa vida en aquella comarca. Y había incluso algunos de entre los mozos que hablaban de él con admiración, diciendo que era un verdadero lobo de mar y un viejo tiburón, y otros apelativos por el estilo. Y afirmaban que hombres como aquel habían ganado para Inglaterra su reputación en el mar. Okay, we have reached our next poll. So we are curious on your opinion. So this is kind of, it seems like opinion is a little bit split on this character. Is he a benefit to this society at the end? Is he a detriment? Is he scaring people away? Is he bringing them in? So let's take a look. What do you think? Why do you think the innkeeper and the villagers put up with this kind of outsider, this pirate? Do you think they're too scared to do anything about it? Do you think they finally kind of find it entertaining, his antics? Maybe there's a possibility of treasure. So go ahead and let us know what you think. Go ahead and vote, and we will see. We will see what people think.
And you can choose more than one thing.
Yes, I believe this is a poll with multiple answers, so you can let us know what you think. Okay.
What do you think, Amanda?
Well, I think it's a little bit of two things. I think they're a little bit, you can be scared at two sides of the same coin, scared and entertained, but I also think they're the only game in town. So if you don't go to the inn, where else are you going to go? Where are you going to go? So we actually have, okay, so everybody was thinking they're at least a little entertained by his antics, but some people are thinking, they're too scared maybe to say anything. I think I might be in that camp. You don't want to, rile this character, but
I think I might be on team all of the above. I mean, he's pretty intimidating, but you can't argue that he's entertaining.
That's true. You want to be there to witness, but not maybe be the brunt of his attention. So, okay.
And with I think those coins that we heard about, so there might be some treasure in it.
Well, and it is called Treasure Island, so we shall see. Okay, let's go ahead and move on with the story.
In one way, indeed, he bade fair to ruin us, for he kept on staying week after week and at last month after month, so that all the money had long been exhausted, and still my father never plucked up the heart to insist on having more. If ever he mentioned it, the captain blew through his nose so loudly that you might say he roared and stared my poor father out of the room. I have seen him wringing his hands after such a rebuff, and I am sure the annoyance and the terror that he lived in must have greatly hastened his early and unhappy death.
I hay que decir que, a pesar de todo, hizo cuanto pudo para arruinarnos, porque semana tras semana y después mes tras mes continuó bajo nuestro techo, aunque desde hacía mucho ya su dinero se había gastado. Y cuando mi padre reunía el valor preciso para combinarle a que nos diera más, el capitán soltaba un bufido que no parecía humano y clavaba los ojos en mi padre tan fieramente que el pobre, aterrado, salía a escape de la estancia. ¿Cuántas veces le he visto, después de una de estas desagradables escenas, retorcerse las manos de desesperación? Y estoy convencido de que el enojo y el miedo en que vivió en ese tiempo contribuyeron a acelerar su prematura y desdichada muerte.
So I picked another resource that I love to talk about, Mango Languages. Mango is a great app that you can download on your phone, log in with your library card information, and practice a language, or maybe pick up a new language that you've been wanting to learn. And since we're getting all piratey and treasury tonight, I wanted to make sure you knew there's even an option to learn how to talk like a pirate. If you want to learn how to avast me hearties, getting ready for International Talk Like a Pirate Day on September 19th, you've got plenty of time to get in there and give that some practice. But if you want to be a little bit more practical, you can also practice your Spanish or French or any other language. And you can also practice English as a second language. There's a great option for that as well. So one of my favorite library resources. It's a lot of fun.
Okay, so we have another holiday coming up. We've got our World Book Day today and International Talk Like a Pirate Day. So like Lisa was saying, you've got plenty of time to prepare for that and check out some other languages to boot.
All the time he lived with us, the captain made no change whatever in his dress, but to buy some stockings from a hawker. One of the cocks of his hat having fallen down, he let it hang from that day forth, though it was a great annoyance when it blew. I remember the appearance of his coat, which he patched himself upstairs in his room, and which, before the end, was nothing but patches. He never wrote or received a letter, and he never spoke with any but the neighbors, and with these, for the most part, only when drunk on rum. The great sea chest none of us had ever seen open.
En todo el tiempo que vivió con nosotros, no mudó el capitán su indumentaria, salvo unas medias que compró a un buhonero. Un ala de su sombrero se desprendió un día, y así colgada quedó, a pesar de lo enojoso que debía resultar con el viento. Aún veo el deplorable estado de su vieja casaca, que él mismo zurcía arriba en su cuarto, y que al final ya no era sino puros remiendos. Nunca escribió carta alguna y tampoco recibía, ni jamás habló con otra persona que alguno de nuestros vecinos, y aun con esto solo cuando estaba bastante borracho de ron. Nunca pudimos sorprender abierto su cofre de marino.
He was only once cross, and that was towards the end, when my poor father had gone in a decline that took him off. Dr. Livesey came late one afternoon to see the patient, took a bit of dinner from my mother, and went into the parlor to smoke a pipe until his horse should come down from the hamlet, for we had no stabling at the old Benbow. I followed him in, and I remember observing the contrast, the neat, bright doctor with his powder as white as snow and his bright black eyes and pleasant manners made with the coltish country folk, and above all with that filthy, heavy, bleared scarecrow of a pirate of ours sitting far gone in rum with his arms on the table. Suddenly he, the captain that is, began to pipe up in his eternal song. 15 men on the dead man's chest, yo ho ho, and a bottle of rum. Drink and the devil had done for the rest, yo ho ho, and a bottle of rum.
Tan solo en una ocasión alguien se atrevió a hacerle frente, y ocurrió ya cerca de su final, y cuando el de mi padre estaba también cercano, consumiéndose en la postración que acabó con su vida. El doctor Livesey había llegado al atardecer para visitar a mi padre, y después de tomar un refrigerio que le ofreció mi madre, Mi padre pasó a la sala a fumar una pipa mientras aguardaba a que trajesen su caballo desde el caserío, pues en la vieja Bembao no teníamos establo. Entré con él y recuerdo cuánto me chocó el contraste que hacía el pulcro y aseado doctor con su peluca empolvada y sus brillantes ojos negros y exquisitos modales, con nuestros rústicos vecinos, pero sobre todo el que hacía con aquella especie de inmundo y legañoso espantapájaros, que era lo que realmente parecía nuestro desvalijador, tirado sobre la mesa y abotargado por el ron. Pero súbitamente el capitán levantó los ojos y rompió a cantar: 15 hombres en el cofre del muerto, ja, 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 y una botella de ron, ron y Satanás se llevaron al resto, ja, 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 y una botella de ron.
At first, I supposed the dead man's chest to be that identical big box of his upstairs in the front room, and the thought had been mingled in my nightmares with that of the one-legged seafaring man. But by this time, we had all long ceased to pay any particular notice to the song. It was new that night to nobody but Dr. Livesey, and on him I observed it did not produce an agreeable effect, for he looked up for a moment quite angrily, before he went on with his talk to old Taylor, the gardener, on a new cure for rheumatics. In the meantime, the captain gradually brightened up at his own music, and at last flapped his hand upon the table before him in a way that we all knew to mean silence. The voices stopped at once, all but Dr. Livesey's. He went on as before, speaking clear and kind, and drawing briskly at his pipe between every word or two. The captain glared at him for a while, flapped his hand again, glared still harder, and at last broke out with a villainous low oath: "Silence there between the decks!"
Al principio yo había imaginado que el cofre de muerto debía ser aquel enorme baúl que estaba arriba, en el cuarto frontero, y esa idea tuvo mis pesadillas mezclada con las imágenes del marino con una sola pierna. Pero a aquellas alturas de la historia no reparábamos mucho en la canción y solamente era una novedad para el Dr. Livesey, al que por cierto no le causó un agradable efecto, ya que pude observar cómo levantaba por un instante su mirada cargada de enojo, aunque continuó conversando con el viejo Taylor, el jardinero, acerca de un nuevo remedio para el reuma. Pero el capitán, mientras tanto, empezó a reanimarse bajo los efectos de su propia música y al fin golpeó fuertemente en la mesa, señal que ya todos conocíamos y que quería imponer silencio. Todas las voces se detuvieron, menos la del Dr. Livesey, que continuó hablando sin inmutarse con su voz clara y de amable tono, mientras daba de vez en cuando largas chupadas a su pipa. El capitán fijó entonces una mirada furiosa en él, dio un nuevo manotazo en la mesa y con el más bellaco a los vozarrones gritó: ¡Silencio en cubierta! Okay, so this is our final poll question of the night. So they mentioned they kind of hint around in the book this chest that it has never been opened, it is always locked. What do you think is in that chest? Why is it so mysterious? What is the captain hiding? Is it a treasure? A treasure map? Is it more rum? Perhaps a skeleton? Or if it's something else, if you think it's something else, you can tell us in the question section. If you've got a guess of another option, go ahead and tell us in the question section. Okay, it looks like a lot of people have already responded, so I'm going to go ahead and share the results, and we are unanimous in this. People think that he is hiding some not so buried treasure in there, maybe formerly buried treasure in there. Well, I know what it is, so I'm not going to give away the answer for those of you who would like to read the book, but we will finish this chapter. Yeah, we will be spoiler free tonight. Okay, so let's move along.
Were you addressing me, sir? says the doctor, when the ruffian had told him with another oath that this was so. I have only one thing to say to you, sir, replies the doctor, that if you keep on drinking rum, the world will soon be quit of a very dirty scoundrel. The old fellow's fury was awful. He sprang to his feet, drew and opened a sailor's clasp knife, and balancing it upon the palm of his hand, threatened to pin the doctor to the wall. The doctor never so much as moved. He spoke to him as before, over his shoulder, and in the same tone of voice, rather high, so that all the room might hear, but perfectly calm and steady. If you do not put that knife this instant in your pocket, I promise upon my honor you shall hang at the next assizes. Then followed a battle of looks between them, but the captain soon knuckled under, put up his own weapon, and resumed his seat, grumbling like a beaten dog.
¿Os dirigís a mí, caballero? Preguntó el médico, y cuando el rufián, mascullando otro juramento, le respondió que sí era, el doctor Livesey replicó, solamente he de deciros una cosa, que si continuáis bebiendo ron, el mundo se verá muy pronto a salvo de un despreciable forajido. La furia que estas palabras despertaron en el viejo marinero fue terrible. Se levantó de un salto y sacó su navaja. Se escuchó el ruido de sus muelles y al abrirla y, balanceándola sobre la palma de la mano, amenazó al doctor con clavarlo en la pared. El doctor no se inmutó. Continuó sentada y le habló hacia el capitán, por encima del hombro, elevando el tono de su voz para que todos pudieran escucharle, perfectamente tranquilo y firme. Si no guardáis ahora esa navaja, os prometo, por mi honor, que en el próximo tribunal del condado os haré ahorcar. Durante unos instantes, los dos hombres se retaron con las miradas, pero el capitán amenazó, se guardó su arma y volvió a sentarse, gruñendo como un perro apelado.
And now, sir, continued the doctor, since I now know there's such a fellow in my district, you may count I'll have an eye upon you day and night. I'm not a doctor only, I'm a magistrate, and if I catch a breath of complaint against you, if it's only for a piece of incivility like tonight's, I'll take effectual means to have you hunted down and routed out of this. Let that suffice. Soon after, Dr. Livesey's horse came to the door and he rode away, but the captain held his peace that evening and for many evenings to come.
Y ahora, señor, continuó el doctor, puesto que no ignoro que su desagradable presencia en mi distrito, podéis estar seguro de que no he de perderos de vista. No solo soy médico, también soy juez. Y si llega a mis oídos a la más mínima queja sobre vuestra conducta, aunque solo fuera por una insolencia como la de esta noche, tomaré las medidas para que os detengan y expulsen de estas tierras. Basta. Al poco rato trajeron hasta nuestra puerta el caballo de Dr. Livesey, y este montó y se fue. El capitán permaneció tranquilo aquella noche, y he de decir que otras muchas a partir de esta. Okay, I think we have reached the end of our reading portion for tonight. So we ended on a little bit of a tense note there in this chapter. Let's go ahead and revisit. Let's come back on camera, Lisa, and we will revisit our question, our question. So go ahead and launch that, and we'll get hopefully we'll get some responses.
What do you think? What's your impression? Does this pirate really does he capture the image of what you think of when you think of a pirate? Does he have that prototypical swagger and menace, or were you expecting something else from him? Let's see what we have here in the.
Yeah. So go ahead, if you have, go ahead and you can type your answers in the question section, and we can read those out loud. I think actually this book is, I think, Treasure Island by Robert Louis Stevenson, who was a great adventure storyteller. It really is, I've got my little mi cofre. Bemoreras. Don't worry,
you've got the swords and I think he has everything but the eye patch.
Well, this one, the eye patch and the pirate, but he's not the only pirate maybe in our book. So I think actually historically, this book is quite highly responsible for the image of pirates we have in the popular vernacular, the popular lore, kind of how we think of pirates. You know, I think in the book we see other pirates with like a missing leg. Well, we talked about a one-legged pirate. Obviously, we think of that peg leg. We think of the bird, the parrot. We think of the eye patch, the hook. So I think a lot of that is actually, I believe, where it may even come from. So I think it does match a lot of people's where they think of pirates there.
You know, you could imagine kids 100 years ago, kids my age, reading this 100 years ago and having the same sort of reaction to the pirate, that they've got the same image that we have right now. And I think there's something kind of special about that, about having that legacy carried through of the imagination of the pirate.
Oh yeah, I think that is pretty interesting, because obviously, you know, we kind of know at this point that the pirates we have in the imagination of these, like, the reality was pretty criminal and pretty brutal and that sort of thing. But I think what Robert Louis Stevenson did is he just picked out enough of the truth to make it realistic and make it long lasting. And I will say, even though this book is read by a lot of kids, there's some pretty tense parts in there. So there is some violence and some danger, some sense of danger, not as much as maybe real pirates, those real pirate stories, not the Edward Teach and the Blackbeard and all of those kind of stories. But there's that, and I think there is enough enough kernels of truth to make it feel realistic, and I think that is interesting there. And I think you see, you see good guys and bad guys, or I don't want to say guys, good characters and bad characters. But you also see a very classic example, which you see with pirates a lot, which is the anti-hero. They're not totally villainous. They're not very good. But you see a lot of that not just this book, but all pirate books. Okay, so I think we're not getting as much discussion, so we'll go ahead and promote for next week. Well, we want to thank you for joining us for Treasure Island. I hope you've enjoyed this story. You know some great resources and ways to find it, and other great books that are in that public domain for on this day, World Book and Copyright Day. You can find those books. We are going to go ahead and go forward. I am going to share with you, I'm dropping to the chat section. If you like programs like this, we do One Book, One Night once a month. It is where we read the first chapter or most of the first chapter of a book that you can presumably get hooked in, get your hooks in, maybe your pirate hook in, and read them one night. Next month, we are going to be celebrating Read a Mystery Month with the Queen of Mystery herself, Agatha Christie. We are going to be reading Crooked House by her. So you probably have heard of or maybe read some of her books. If perhaps not this one, please join us on May 28th at 6:30 p.m., where we will be reading Crooked House by Agatha Christie.
If you like Knives Out, very popular right now. Knives Out was inspired by Crooked House, so that might be a
very good one. Very good one. Well, a lot of her, a lot of those stories are making it. Everything goes in cycles. Everything's popular. So of course they were popular at the time, and then they've had so many. You've got the great '70s movie of Murder on the Orient Express. You've got the one that just came out. Knives Out, like you said, is inspired by that, and it does really have that multi-character murder mystery feel. Knives Out, which is a great pairing, a book and movie pairing. So we're going to be reading that one, Crooked House, and I do believe that actually has a semi-recent, the last 5 to 7 years, adaptation through maybe like the BBC or something. So we're going to go ahead and let you know, if you do want to contact the library, if you have questions about using your library card, signing up for a library card, or any of the cool things we've talked about tonight, definitely give us a call at 813-273-3652, or you can connect with us online at hcplc.org/contact. We love sharing these classic stories with you, but we also love hearing your stories, your library stories. So if you want to share any special library memories, anything you like or appreciate, or just something special to you about the library, you can submit that online at hcplc.org/about/stories. And if you want to find more great events like this one or Crooked House, you can find our full calendar of events at hcplc.org/events. So we will leave you with this closing. We've got some great words of wisdom by Robert Louis Stevenson. So we want to say thank you for joining us and good night. See you next month.
See you soon. Bye.